Oh, God, that's another thing not to talk about.
Keep going.
Oh, my books are banned so many places. And sometimes I think that maybe that's a good thing because they aren't reaching the psychos. My books are banned in prison systems
What?
because they are enormously popular, these prison librarians tell me, but the books are considered way too stimulating. So,
Wow.
so people in prison cannot read my books.
Holy shit. All prisons?
Don't know if it's all, but it's Texas and a number of other really big states. So I don't know.
That's kind of a badge of honor.
Yeah, but it doesn't equate to the immortality of being banned like Howl or Tropic of Cancer or
Salman Rushdie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, God. That fucking struggle, man. The struggle of wanting to express yourself as freely as possible, but being limited even by your own peers. That is, that's unexpected to someone who's on the outside of literature, someone who just reads it. Because it's not in the comedy world. Well, it is in the comedy world, but not amongst good comedians.
Well, another aspect of that is that so often people aren't censoring it because it offends them. They're censoring it because they're afraid it will offend someone they know. They're doing it, they're kind of white knighting on behalf of someone else. David Sedaris told me this story about telling a joke or something very funny about a girl in a wheelchair, and how he looked out in the audience and no one was laughing. They were all looking at a girl in a wheelchair. And the moment she started to laugh, the entire audience started to laugh.
Oh, yeah.
And so often people in a workshop, they might not personally feel offended by the word, but they're thinking how that word might hurt people they know.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, that's a giant issue in comedy. If someone's telling a joke, if someone's on stage talking about someone who's fat, and there's a fat person in the front row, that joke will bomb.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. But that's because people are good people overall. You know, they recognize that they don't want to cause pain.
Another really odd comic David Sedaris story is that he always told me, when you're on the road, don't read from your current book. Always read from the next book, because it's a way of road testing the stories and finding out which ones work and should go into the next book. And in doing so, he was telling this story about being in this forensic laboratory as an autopsy was taking place. And this autopsy table was adjacent to this huge indoor window that separated the autopsy suite from this lunchroom. And in the lunchroom were the rest of the forensic staff, and they were all eating their lunches. They all had tuna sandwiches and cans of Coke and barbecued potato chips. And they were watching through the window as this absolutely perfect 12-year-old boy was being autopsied. And just hours before, this kid, like 2 hours before, this kid had been riding his bicycle. He'd fallen over, he'd hit his head on the curb, and now 2 hours later, he was dead. And dead without almost a scratch on him. Just this perfect, naked, dead 12-year-old boy on the autopsy table. And as the technicians eating their lunch, watching it through a window, they watch as the pathologist incises around the top of the kid's face, at the top of the forehead, the hairline, and then peels the face down, like peeling an orange, peels the entire face off of the skull of this little boy and leaves the face around the neck like a mask, like a rubber mask. And this exposes this liver-colored, dark red musculature of the child's underlying face. And this one guy watching it with a mouthful of tuna sandwich, he points this out and he says, "See that? That there? That's the color of red that I want to paint our rec room."
Holy shit.
And when Sedaris told that story in front of 600 people, it was dead silent. And you could hear people weeping. People were crying and they were hating David Sedaris in that moment. And so I had to laugh. I laughed really loud like a donkey. And it was amazing how the hatred in that auditorium swung from hating David, who they did not want to hate, to hating this jackass over here who was actually laughing. And so I threw myself on the sword for David, and that story never went in any book.
Wow. Did the story not go in any book just because of the reaction by the audience or
Yeah.
just the uncomfortable moment? He just decided? Did
He
you
was-
speak to him about it?
No, I didn't. Not afterwards. It was just such an awkward, painful thing. I would never kind of throw it back in his face.
Right.
But to my knowledge, that was the only time the story was told.
Do you have those like scattered about? Are there scenes where you wrote and you just sat and looked at him and went, no, I just got to put that one somewhere else.
Oh, there are
Set that aside.
jokes that I told where I got hissed by 800 people. And you know, if you can live through those moments, you realize you can live through a lot. If you can be hated by 1,100 people at a Barnes & Noble on Union Square, yeah, you can be hated by your mother. It's okay.
Now, when those people come to see you, how many of those people are fans of literature and how many of those people are specifically fans of your work? Like, there would be a difference. Like, the people who are fans of your work would at least expect some uncomfortable moments.
And for the most part, they tend to be more or less just fans of my work.
And still hiss.
Oh, yeah, but it's, again, they're hissing on behalf of someone. They're not hissing for themselves. You know, I made this horrible cheap shot, and they always know a cheap shot. People always know a cheap shot. I was commenting about how in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Truman Capote had made this observation that Americans don't like true beauty, true classical natural beauty. They want to see a very plain person who has been so groomed, so exercised, so made up, so stylized, that she can kind of pass as this amazing, strange beauty. That's what Americans want, because natural classic beauty is not egalitarian. You're either born with it or you're not. They want to see a plain person who has been transformed. And to make my point, at the end of the story, I made a cheap shot. I said, and that's why we have Sarah Jessica Parker. And I said this in New York. And in New York, Sarah Jessica Parker is worshipped like a god. And that whole crowd hissed and booed and did everything but throw excrement at me.
Wow.
But then later in line, half of them came up and whispered, "That was really funny."
Yeah, that's one of the things about dark comedy clubs. You want them dark. You don't want everyone illuminated. Like when the crowd is like it's one of the real issues with doing a comedy special is that especially the old way they used to do them, they used to like to light up the audience, which completely changes the dynamic of the room, changes what you'll laugh and what you won't laugh at. You know, and a scene like the Sarah Jessica Parker joke, it's a perfect example. Like you don't want to be caught dead being the one person that throws their head back and howls at that.
You know, cheap shots are just stay away from them. But that's another, I'll ask you a question. You know, with so many colleges becoming these kind of strident, safe places that demand their own aesthetic, what is it like doing comedy?
Well, it hasn't changed that much. People have gotten a little bit more sensitive because they're aware that other people are more sensitive. With the audiences that come to nightclubs, which is primarily where I perform, if I do a theater, those people are there to see me. So they're usually pretty loose, pretty fun. But if you're in a nightclub, they're there to see, especially the Comedy Store. One of the good things about the Comedy Store is there's literally 24 people in the lineup. So they're not necessarily just there to see you. They're there to see Anthony Jeselnik and Chris D'Elia and all these other comedians that are also there as well. So you get a much broader comedy audience. But they're nightclub audiences. They have a few drinks in them. Maybe they smoked a little pot before they got there. Those people are there to have a good time. Colleges are a nightmare now. It's a nightmare because it's recreational outrage. It's kids who have been under the control of their parents for most of their life and haven't had their own sovereignty and identity, and now they're free. And they are very quick to be outraged. They want to point out their moral superiority. They want to virtue signal at every opportunity. They want to shut down anything they think is, air quotes, problematic. They don't want things to go in a bad way. And they think for some reason that comedy should be uplifting and it should only punch up. Like I had this conversation once with a professor who wrote a book on comedy. And he said, all great comedy punches up. And I said, that's bullshit. I said, one of the greatest bits of all time is Sam Kinnison's bit about starving children in Africa, about watching those commercials where starving kids are in Africa and, you know, and couldn't you please help? And he goes in, you know, and Kinnison's like, he just want to grab the guy. Hey, why don't you help him? You're right fucking there. Or send someone like me. He goes, send someone like me who's going to take these people and go, hey, we just drove here 5,000 miles with your food, and it occurred to us you wouldn't be world hunger if you people would live where the fucking food is. He goes, come here. You see that? That's sand. We got sand in America too. We just don't live in it, asshole. And he goes in one of the greatest bits of all time is literally about starving babies in Africa. It's one of the greatest bits of all time. And he didn't have anything to say. He didn't know where to go with it. I'm like, don't say comedy is only about punching up. That's crazy talk. That's what you're doing is there's this moral thing that they're trying to achieve that literally is completely independent of humor. It's not what's funny. It's like they want it to be a multi-purpose tool. They want it to be funny as well as morally uplifting and great for people who are discriminated against and amazing for folks who are marginalized and uplifting for those who are disenfranchised. Well, that's not what comedy is. What comedy is funny. Those things are wonderful if you want to do a spoken word show or poetry or writing or, you know, a one-person play. Those are great. But that's not funny. Comedy is funny. So it's either funny or it's not funny. And some things are funny that are fucked up. You know, Kinnison had a bit about homosexual necrophiliacs who are paying money to spend a few hours undisturbed with the freshest male corpses. And so he would lie down on his stomach, and he goes, you imagine these people, they're on the slabs, they're like, well, went through life and had a good time and everything, and now I guess I'm going to go and be with Jesus, and hey, what the hell is this? And he's rocking back and forth. Feels like some guy's got his dick in my ass. You mean life keeps fucking you in the ass even after you're dead? It never ends. It never ends. Oh. He would close on it because he couldn't follow it. It was such a powerful bit. It was about a dead guy getting fucked in the ass. There is no further down that you could punch other than starving babies in Africa.
You know, and I'm not sure about if this is punching down, but do you remember the routine that kind of put Whoopi Goldberg on the map a million years ago about being a black surfer chick?
No.
Oh, you know, she did it on television. I must have seen it on cable when I was like 19 years old. But she talks in Valley speak. Nobody's seen this Whoopi person before. She's brand new. Nobody's ever seen her on television. She's got this funny name. And she's doing this Val speak about being the only black surfer chick on the beach. And she loves surfing. And she loves this one white surfer guy. And she finally hooks up with him. And then she realizes she's pregnant. And it's all very funny. The whole front end, you're just roaring with laughter. And then she's pregnant. And she doesn't know what to do. So she gets a rusty wire coat hanger, and she goes into a public bathroom on the beach, and she gives herself a coat hanger abortion. And it spills out there on the concrete floor. And everything's okay. And now I'm back on the beach, and I'm just doing fine. And why don't you come on down and see me here on the beach? It's great down here. It's great.
Holy shit.
It's a fantastic piece. And
she did that on television?
She did it on TV. And it started so light, like an Ira Levin novel. And then it went to such a dark, horrible place. And then it came up with just this kind of token, everything is okay ending. I'm going to be all right.
Don't worry.
This is just something that happened.
Happy.
Yeah.
do, 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 do,
that it just leaves you shaken. And that's the kind of comedy that I love.
Yeah.
Where
Damn.
it goes to that dark or that sentimental place and it breaks your heart. And then it kind of comes out of it a little bit. But Ira Levin did that so well. Nora Ephron, in her books, she was so good at doing that. Heartburn. Heartburn is fantastically funny. But by the end, you're just weeping. The book is so sad.